My talk tonight is, well, my project's called Under New Government, Political Accountability in Myanmar under the National League for Democracy. So the core concept is basically working out of what the consideration is. So the National League for Democracy in the elections held in 2015 in November won an astounding 80% of the available seats in parliament within Myanmar. So this was kind of the first free, open, and fair elections held in Myanmar. And the question basically was, given the election manifesto that the NLD put out prior to the election, how are they making progress on their promises, and how can we measure that? So one of the things that was interesting in looking at it, we have a result of the elections here, is the NLD won all the stuff that's red. What makes this interesting, and where I decided to change my shift a little bit from the national level, is I wanted to take a look at the Shan state. Right there, that gets to the question of, basically, why are there the blue and the green bits? So the blue part is actually the National League for Democracy subsidiary within the Shan state, but then the other was a Shan State Nationalist Party. It brings kind of some interesting ideas. So the idea was, okay, we've got a region that is less interested overall in kind of the overall approach within Myanmar and what the NLD is looking to do on a national scale. Instead, they're interested in how is the NLD reaching out to an area that is comprised primarily of ethnic minorities that don't represent the majority of Myanmar, and how exactly can that be measured? So the kind of key areas were inclusiveness and ethnic and regional peace. Tied to that is just how the Shan State has always been viewed as a more kind of independent region, or has pushed for more independence since Myanmar became independent from the British back in the 1940s. So along with that, just more generally, the NLD has tried to emphasize on human rights as well. So from there, the question was kind of how can we approach this? And originally, I worked with the idea of doing interviews. Unfortunately, that proved to be rather infeasible. People in Myanmar aren't really going to open up to me about either basically any of the problems they might see in the political system within their country. Instead, I worked to find a collection of metrics that basically help to represent how we see the central government reaching out or engaging with ethnic minorities. So part of this is the ceasefire accords. It's required for any military groups within Myanmar to sign the peace accords in order to engage in the 21st Century Padang conferences, which are tied to basically reaching out and resolving the lingering ethnic tensions of a country that's been engaged in some of the longest running civil wars in the world, running on about 7 decades at this point. School completion was kind of another one. It's basically outlining how we've seen investment from the central government, both in terms of actual capital, so building up just something beyond primary schools to allow people to complete basically beyond 5th grade for those that are there, as well as just the ability to invest in the human capital and provide teachers. Transitional justice is another part of that, so that goes back to the idea that civil war has been an issue for going on 70 years there. So just how exactly do they work to resolve this? Now this is just a collection of a few of the proxies that I've decided to use, obviously more than were in my report itself. But my overall goal is to analyze proxies and try and figure out what exactly we've seen in the course of a, well, unfortunately short time frame of a year that the NLD has been in power. So that kind of moves into the outcomes that we've had. Kind of first and foremost is, as I just said, the limited time frame. Since the NLD has only been in power for a year, there really are only so many things you're able to kind of look at and see. So the research is definitely ongoing in terms of what's happened, where it's going, and what we plan to see. The 21st Century Padang Conference, so the second round of it, which is, as I said, kind of the peace process with the assorted military groups involved, or ethnic military groups, has been postponed. It was originally supposed to kick off in mid-March. The most recent update is it's actually supposed to be beginning in about 3 weeks. So with any luck, in about a month and a half, we'll begin to see a few more results in terms of what's going on, what kind of progress has been made in that area. One of the other things that's really kind of key in the implementation and progress of the National League for Democracy is that they've got very restricted power. Under the Constitution that they came to power in, roughly a third of the seats in the parliament are restricted for members of the military. So out of that 80% that they won, that was 80% of 2/3, not 80% of the whole parliament. So right there, that's really kind of a major impediment to the progress that the NLD could hope to kind of impose. Part of that is also that a lot of the kind of core ministries are still under the power of military as well. So there's some very major restrictions in terms of how effectively the NLD is going to be able to operate going forward. And of course, the military conveniently keeps this little part of they get the ability to veto any constitutional changes, like things that might reduce the power of the military. So the basic summation is that there's been some progress, but there's definitely more information to update the report as it comes along with, and that we should be able to see a lot more. In terms of what we think of this for development overall, it really is just kind of a couple of things. So it's the complexity of a changing political landscape that is just something that we're likely to see at any given point in basically any country that we work in. A mixed political economy, so just the idea that there is no single wielder of absolute power. And I mean, honestly, Myanmar has been a development hotspot for the last several years, and it will continue to be so. So it's just really kind of a lot of reasons why we should be looking at it and why I think that my report contributes significantly.
So do you find in your work any kind of tension between the international development and Myanmar's ability to have sovereignty over their agenda politically? Kind of like intervention of international development in the overall democracy process?
So there hasn't been as much of that under the National League for Democracy. There were some actually really interesting cases when it was like under the previous government. So after the major cyclone in 2008, there was actually a major delay in terms of humanitarian efforts because the government was worried that Western nations were trying to sneak people, like basically get people in to build out an information network and maybe trying to undermine the government. For where I'm focusing in the Shan state, not so much. In terms of the Rakhine state, on the other side of the country, there are certainly greater concerns just because the government overall has not really had the most positive outlook in the region. So
data collection is tough, right?
Yep.
There's not much consistent reliable data to go off of as of yet. Do you have any recommendations for that included in your work and your comments on the analysis of all these proxies?
So a little bit, part of it is tied to kind of looking at the NGOs that are doing work there. There's definitely because it's just kind of changing and the government seems to be more inclined to somewhat more open data practices. I think that in coming years there will be a lot more widely available data. But right now, a lot of the data really comes out of baseline in the kind of 2009-2010 stretch, where that was just kind of the first opportunity for a lot of exterior international actors to move into the country and be able to kind of see what was actually going on the ground.
We had two presentations last week on the business side, the agricultural side. Where does the economy and the life of the small farmers come into play with what you're looking at?
So it's definitely one of the things that's important. I'm sure, well, unfortunately, David Holst isn't here. I'm sure he would remind us that one of the key parts of particularly economic development is really having secure property rights. And that's definitely one of the big issues kind of right now is there's really a strong mix between people who are laying claim to what can be done. So it's really restricted, just in my own experiences over the summer. There were several people that they had money ready to, from international donors, ready to build infrastructure. But a lot of the militia groups or just the government is where they're really experiencing difficulties in terms of gaining traction because it's, yeah, sure, you could build there, but the group down the road is going to want something too. So what are you going to do for them? So it's been kind of an issue on multiple fronts that, I mean, being able to get into the peace conferences will help to alleviate that with any luck, but it's not a simple issue.
So if you were an investor, would you be long or short?
Long. I think the overall inclination is towards openness and towards stability, but I think it's just going to be a rocky road getting there.